We've got 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets, you guys. It's time for an episode of the Regan's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with a return of Regan's Newsround, where we cover 7 different stories from 7 different media outlets here in the UK. And we start here with The Guardian with the headline of "No More Basket Case Britain. Europe welcomes Starmer's reset in the UK-EU ties. The Prime Minister promises to draw a line under years of faction relations, greeted with plaudits and relief by European media." So obviously, they want to, Keir Starmer, you can see here this picture with Keir Starmer and Emmanuel Macron. It certainly looks a lot more happier. It seems a lot more positive. And that's a very good sign there. Obviously, smile. I mean, it could be just playing to the camera, things. But we didn't feel that with Rishi Sunak, with European leaders. You didn't feel that with Liz Truss. You didn't really feel that so much with Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson felt quite isolated as well up there. So it has been quite a while. I think Theresa May probably had better. Theresa May and David Cameron obviously had better relationships with EU than I would say than the last 3 prime ministers. I think that's pretty given, given the pictures and the relationship obviously, and without a doubt Brexit has obviously damaged that relationship, of course. But the rhetoric and the tone that we've had coming out from certain Conservative MPs, Conservative members, Conservative cabinet, previous Conservative cabinet colleagues, has not helped our relationship. It's damaged our relationship with Europe. And the term, obviously, reset is really, really important. This does not mean we're going back into the EU single market. I have to keep regurgitating this sometimes because people still have this premise of, he's taking us back in. And it's just like, no, we want a better relationship with our neighbours because it makes logical sense. And this is the thing. I don't understand why people have a problem with this, have a problem with having a better relationship with Europe. I think it's a good thing. It's a better thing. This will be it'll be beneficial to have a better relationship with your European partners from an economic point of view, from a security point of view, from a strategic point of view, from a health point of view, in terms of cooperation, say, for instance, a pandemic struck. All these things make sense. And you don't want sour relations, especially at the top of government, regardless of whether they're considered left-wing, right, or whatever. You want better relationships. So drawing a line under this is really important. Drawing a line under what the Conservatives has put through is really, really important. And I think that really, really matters here. So let's read what they had to say here. So Keir Starmer's promise of reset of the UK's ties with the rest of Europe has drawn a positive response in the European media, with one long-time journalist rejoicing that she will never again have to cover Britain as a basket case. The Prime Minister has told leaders at a meeting of the European political community at Bleacham Palace in Oxfordshire on Thursday that he wanted to draw a line under years of fractious relations with the rest of Europe. The relaunch was greeted with a series of relief that after years of chaotic leadership in London, a new age of cooperation was beginning. I also want to make it very clear as well, this is very important, that this meeting of European community at Bleacham Park, this was set up by the Conservative government. This was set up by Rishi Sunak. It's very, very important to emphasise that. So Labour can't take the credit for having this European political community. You have to give credit for him setting up that. It just happens to be new government now. So, but that doesn't. But obviously, Labour have already stated the tone that they wanted to have with Europe from the beginning, and into government of what they wanted. So Annette Dillert, the long-time London correspondent for the German public broadcaster ARD, was effused about the vibe shift. Starmer managed to restore Britain's reputation in Europe within a day. Astonishing achievement in such a short time, Ditter tweeted. Within a day is maybe a bit over the top, but still, what a complete change of tone and such a relief and not having to report on Britain as a basket case anymore. The Spiegel noted that after a long ice age between Berlin and London, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and Starmer got along well. It said the new Prime Minister's performance at Bleacham could mark the beginning of a new tandem for Europe. The news magazine said, given the potential return of Donald Trump to the White House and the weakening of President Emmanuel Macron in France, Europe needs new flunchcrums, some sort of word like that, of power. In the German delegation, there is hope that the cooperation with the British government under Starmer will significantly intensify on the bilateral and European level, on security and defensive issues, on economic cooperation, but also on delicate issues like migration, as Der Spiegel had said. In France, Le Monde noted that the difference between the two countries' leaders, Starmer on the upward trajectory on the back of a landslide victory, and Macron weakened by a snap election. But the newspaper added the British leader knows that he needs the French president and a future French government to complete the reset of relations between his country and the EU after damage caused by Brexit. In Italy, La Repubblica had wrote the rapid approach with the EU is now official. London correspondent of the Spanish daily La Vanguardia also said it was not the B word that was occupying leaders in any word, but the R word, reset. The Labour leader made it quite plain that he doesn't just want to reset the relationship with Europe, but also to recover the UK's world leading role based on respect and for international law. Thus, reversing down the path embarked on by Boris Johnson, followed by his successors, Rafael Ramos had wrote. And in Ireland, the Irish Times noted that diplomatic love bombs Starmer was scattering as the leader was driven out of Beecham Palace within fleets of black cars in the early morning. The warmth of days of sunshine reminded in the air, and Starmer hopes the warmth will also persist in his relationship across Europe, it said. Marina Rambes, who covers the UK for the online Spanish newspaper El Delios, noted that the messaging at Beecham had been very clear. Starmer was speaking at a forum that included EU members and around 20 European governments and institutions, she wrote. But the new Labour government was interested in focusing on improving relationships with the EU, which it wanted a reset. So these are good signs, obviously, that foreign medias are obviously, hearing what the foreign medias are saying there. That's very good signs there indeed. I do like that. I do like the hear of that. It does give me some renewed optimism. Obviously, like I say, everything is all still early days. You know, Labour government's only been in for more than 2 weeks, so but it seems like positive signs on this, and I think this is really, really good. Whether more will come of this, obviously, can we, better and warmer relationships can lead to better communication and potentially down the road better deals that will benefit both Europe and these countries and us. And that's what you want. It makes logical sense that we want these things. We want the better relationships with them. And they would want better relationship with us. It doesn't help anyone. And Britain has always been a very much the pivotal point of the EU, even though it's not part of the European Union Single Market Customs Union. We are still a part of Europe. We can still have a good and strong relationship. So this is, I'm glad that this meeting of sorts have held, and engagement was made there. I think it's a really, really good sign. And let's hope more occur in the future for the sake of the UK. So next one I got for you guys is from Sky News. It's a small one here, but it's a concerning one, obviously. It's around migration. The headline is the small boat crossings in 2024 passed 15,000. So it comes a day after the new Prime Minister outlined his plans to tackle illegal migration following Labour's scrapping of the Conservative Rwanda scheme. So obviously the Rwanda scheme has ditched. If you haven't already got that, understood that, it was a crap policy, terrible policy. We've said this 100 times here on the channel, but for those who are new, it was a waste of money, waste of taxpayers' money. It was never going to deter or stop migrants crossing the channel. It was a folly idea. Now, obviously, I have questions about this whole border security command thing that was in the King's speech. Whether or not it will actually make a difference is another thing. But time will tell. Time will tell on that. But considering we have a different political party in power as opposed to Conservatives who keep saying that they were going to tackle and deal with the migration issue, okay, now it's down to Labour to show that they can do that. And if they do, why would you want to vote reform if Labour show that they have reduced the migration numbers, if they reduced the backlog, if they cleared migrants and asylum seekers out of hotels and barges and whatnot, if they do find to have reduced those numbers, reduced people crossing over, then why would you want to vote reform? Because if reform is all about immigration and Labour show in the next few years that they can reduce migration, the numbers prove it, why do you need to vote reform then? Answers on a postcard, please. So let's have a read a bit more into this, guys. So the number of people arriving in the UK via small boats channel crossing this year has now passed 15,000, the government has confirmed. A total of 317 people has made this dangerous journey across 6 boats on Thursday, bringing 2024's total so far to 15,076. Again, you have to remember this government's only been in power for just over 2 weeks, so we got to give them an opportunity to do things. And the number is higher than the figures for the same date in 2023, where the total has reached 14,071. But it is still lower than the record-breaking year of 2022, where it has reached 15,314 by this date. It comes after another person died overnight when the boat crowded with 86 people got into trouble in the channel. It also follows fresh commitments from the government on how it plans to tackle illegal migration. Speaking at the European Political Community, the EPC summit last night, Sir Keir Starmer announced his plans to stop the crossings at source by putting £84 million into health and education initiatives in Africa and the Middle East, helping prevent people wanting to flee their homes in the first place. And this is exactly what this is something that I've been saying for quite a while about helping. We need to help these nations of where they are coming from. And he's obviously £84 million of putting this in. Obviously, it's a question of where's this £84 million coming from? Where's it coming from? What's this, sort of thing? I'm assuming they're going to say this is part of some of the money from the Rwanda plan, perhaps, maybe. But if this helps drive better quality of life, better needs for people in these parts of the world where they don't feel the need to flee their country, Europe, if it means that's stopping them and helping them on these nations, on these continents, if it means that, and then we get a reduction in migration, not just obviously in Africa and the Middle East and other parts of the world, but if it stop migration, reduces the migration levels of coming into Europe, that's all the more of a positive thing. And this is what this initiative comes across to me as, an intent of obviously wanting to put out the fires in the homes of where these people have come from, as opposed to just trying to stop them right here, right now. Let's see what we try to stop them at the source, which is what they've called this here. And I think this is a very good decision. Obviously, people will question about the money, but I would say if this overall reduces not just migration to UK, but the whole of Europe, this is a positive thing for everyone. The Prime Minister also confirms a deepening of cooperation with European partners to tackle the issue, including increasing the UK's presence at Europol, agreeing new agreements with Slovenia and Slovakia on tackling organised crime, and a commitment to share more intelligence to put the gangs out of business. It's a very different approach to the previous Conservative government of their Rwanda deportation plan, which was scrapped by Labour after they took power 2 weeks ago. A Home Office spokesperson said, "We all want to see an end to dangerous small boat crossings, which are undermining border security and putting lives at risk. The new government is taking steps to boost our border security by setting up a new border security command, which will bring together our intelligence and enforcement agencies, equipped with new counter-terrorist style powers and hundreds of personnel stationed in the UK and overseas to smash the criminal smuggling gangs and making millions of pounds in profit." And that's the thing. If it makes the difference, then great. But again, like I said, if you help these people from where they come from, it's a good start. Because then, if you can show that the numbers are going down, if you can show the mitigation is coming down, not just in the UK but Europe, it stops this pointless rhetoric that the so-called some radical far right politics and political sides that keep saying about immigration, too much immigration. If it shows that this works and that the numbers do start reducing, and it is entirely possible that the numbers can come down, obviously time will tell if this can be done. Then is less of a reason to back it then, because that's kind of what they are riding on. They're riding on the whole immigration stuff. But if they can show that the numbers are going down, then this is a very positive thing. And let's hope that it does show to be the case here. So the next article I've got for you guys is from the BBC. And President Zelensky, obviously, having some time with Sir Keir Starmer, I think is very, very good here. So it is a bit of Ukraine, but it's also about Europe's relationship there as well. And I've talked about this in the video as well. So Zelensky urges the Prime Minister to help lift Ukraine's weapon limits. So Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged Sir Keir Starmer to show your leadership by helping to remove restrictions on how Ukraine can use weapons supplies by its Western allies. So obviously, I think, Ukraine, the United Kingdom obviously has not been as contributed as much to this conflict as other nations. Some other nations have done a lot more. Germany, Poland, obviously, as prime examples. We know that there's been, like I've covered in the World Newsround, there's been obviously lots of weapons and supplies. F-16s for certain European nations have been supplying F-16s to Ukraine as well. And obviously, I think it's Lithuania had also been trying to provide a lot of energy to Ukraine as well, because a lot of their infrastructure has been damaged by bombardments by Russia into Ukrainian territory that they have still got control of, that has been taken by the occupied territories that Russia have within Ukraine as well. But Zelensky just wants more freedom to be able to do what he needs, and just obviously he's obviously advocating for more things, and he needs more things. They have to remember that this conflict has been started by Putin. This has been started by Russia. I understand the argument that people make that this argument that it's NATO's fault or the West's fault because of expansion of NATO. But my counter argument is that NATO is not an offensive organization. They've not shown any aggression towards Russia. They've brought unity to nations, protecting nations and keeping them all together. I don't know why Russia should be afraid of NATO, shouldn't care about NATO. Putin claimed of some agreements in the past. I've not seen evidence for this. I know people have said there is, but there's no excuse for what he did in 2014, annexing Crimea. The world was, in my opinion, cowards, a bunch of cowards for not acting at that time. And the world thought that Putin wouldn't have the guts to actually declare war on Ukraine, and he did. And the world was fortunate because Ukraine was about to fall, and somehow they held on and fought back. And now we're in the situation that we are in, still going on. Europe doesn't really want to directly engage with Russia, but technically Europe and the UK are a part of this war. We are technically a part of this war because we are funding Ukraine with money. We are funding them with weapons and arms. We are funding them with medical aid, just like many European countries. We are practically a part of this war, whether we like it or not. So how do you propose we end this, Regan? It ends when Russia gets out of the territory that's not theirs. They have no right to it. They have no right to that territory that they claim. They have no right to Crimea. They have no right for the territory that they have taken. That territory belongs to Ukraine. And it is up to the people of Ukraine to decide their own futures. Not Putin, not Russia, but the people of Ukraine should have their voice and have their say. And they don't like that Ukraine is turning more towards the European Union. They don't like that. Well, it's not up to you whether you like it or not, Putin. It's not up to Russians whether they like it or not. It's up to the people of Ukraine. If the people of Ukraine say they want to be a part of the EU, they should be allowed that democratic right to do so. If the people of Ukraine want to be a part of NATO, they should have the democratic right to do so. That it should be their decisions, their choice in this. It should not be up to them. Belarus is under the thumb of Russia, under the thumb of that. The people of Belarus have no say in their rights. They have no say in their country. Just like when Georgia didn't have no say when it was put under a thumb by Russia. And now things are obviously turning for the worst over there since the new Russian law was implemented there. So, yeah, it's really important that we help and protect our European allies. I think this is really, really important. So let's read more what they had to say here. So, addressing a meeting of the cabinet in Downing Street, Mr. Zelensky said being able to hit Russia's territory would help prevent attacks on residential areas in Ukraine. Pressed on the subject earlier, Defence Secretary John Henley said the UK's provision of weapons to Ukraine does not preclude them hitting targets in Russia. However, he added that it must be done by the Ukrainians and must be done within the parameters and the bounds of international humanitarian law. He told BBC Radio 4 Today programme that the UK was having intense discussions on the complex questions, but said it would not go into details in public. Yeah, of course, it's better to have... There are some things, obviously, we can't know about. During his visit to Downing Street, Mr. Zelensky also thanked the British government for its ongoing support, which he said would bring an end to the war in Russia. He was greeted to the cabinet room with a standing ovation from senior ministers. It was the first time a foreign leader has addressed the cabinet in person since US President Bill Clinton in 1997. So Keir promised to double down on support for Ukraine and told Mr. Zelensky the political resolve to stand with Ukraine was not just in Parliament but across the country. He has also said he has accepted an invitation to visit Ukraine in the future. Yeah, I think that's really good as well. That I fully expect that as well. So Keir being very serious, not changing anything since Sunak and Boris and their commitments to Ukraine, and rightfully so. In June, Ukraine was given permission to use Western weapons to hit targets inside Russia. Previously, it would only be allowed to target occupied territories inside Ukraine. However, the permission does not extend to long-range weapons, which could be used to hit military bases well inside Russia. This means that Ukraine is restricted to hitting targets near its borders. And earlier this month, a children's hospital in the Ukrainian capital Kiev was hit after Russia launched a wave of missile strikes against Ukrainian cities. During the cabinet meeting, Mr. Zelensky told senior ministers that Russian President Vladimir Putin must pay for his disregard for human life. How can we ensure this? Right now, we are missing the main answer to this question. That is our long-range capabilities. Show your leadership in this and please convene to other partners to remove the limits. We need this step, and that will force Russia to seek peace. During his visit to number 10, Mr. Zelensky signed a defensive export support treaty aimed at helping Ukrainian and UK defensive companies to invest in further military capabilities. And he follows further his meeting at the European political community at Beach and Paris in Oxfordshire, when the continent leaders agreed to tackle a Russian so-called shadow fleet, 600 tankers evading sanctions on Russian oil. The vessels carry around 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. Some are also believed to be transporting weapons to Russia or acting as Russian listening stations. I was not aware of that little bit there at the end. Interesting. But I think that was very humble for Zelensky to be able to sit in the number 10 cabinet room and actually sit with Prime Minister Keir Starmer there. I think that's a very powerful image there, especially how rare it is for a foreign leader to be in there. But it just shows, you know, how united the UK is in its support for Ukraine. You know, the vast majority, I would say about the vast majority of people in the UK do support Ukraine, do support our standing by them. But also many people in the UK also are rightfully, many people are frustrated by the fact that, like, we are giving so much money, we're giving so much weapons and arms, and some people do want a resolution to this. They do want a resolution to this, and I fully understand that arguments and those questions. I think that's rightfully so. Those questions should be asked. I totally understand that, but as we just have to stand by them. They are friends and are allies, and they need all the support that they can get. And of course, I will continue to cover the Ukraine war on short videos as much as I possibly can for you guys, as well as covering other news on that. So just before I go to the next article, which is from iNews, guys, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it. Please share this across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. And thank you to anyone who's done so. It really does mean a lot. Just commenting, giving your feedback, and commenting on my videos, watching videos a bit longer really does make a massive difference. So thank you to everyone who does that. The next one I have for you guys here is from iNews. The headline is "No End to the Bibby Stockholm migrant barge in sight despite Labour's criticism." So the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper said she wanted to end the use of barges as soon as possible, but no decision has been made on this. So at the time of this recording, guys, that no decision has been made on whether or not that this would be stopped. Now, I want to stress, obviously, I don't know if I mentioned it at the start of the video, but this is being recorded on the 19th of July 2024 at about 4 p.m. UK time. So it's entirely possible that there may have been some slight updates to some of these stories. So I just wanted to put that added in there. Now, I understand if they can't get them off because they don't know where to put them. Off the barge because they don't know where to put them. I can understand that. But I do think that I'm sure that they would not have done this without some significant reason. But I do know, obviously, before they came to power, they didn't rule out. They didn't say they were going to do it straight away. I'm pretty sure that they were going to give it. They were going to be looking at. The main thing is obviously trying to reduce the backlogs. It's going to be trying to reduce the backlogs, and I slowly believe that over time that it will be cleared. It's just a case of we just need to be patient about it. I understand the frustrations and concerns about the barge as well. I don't know at the time of this recording as well. I would like the Home Office to do another review and check to see if the conditions on the. I would like this new Labour government, to do another review and check on the barge itself to check if it is safe and okay. An independent review of the barge, and just to know that it's perfectly okay for living capabilities and whatnot for migrants on there. And I think that's really important, because I just didn't trust the Conservatives to be free and fair with it. But I think that's something they should do as well. So let's read a bit more into this, you guys. So So no plans have been made to scrap the Bibby Stockholm despite the new government's wishing to close the barge as fast as possible. The three-storey barge, which is moored in Portland in Dorset, was repurposed to house asylum seekers by the Conservative government in a bid to cut down the high costs of using hotels. But it has been the subject of a string of controversial criticism and legal challenges since opening, and in December, an asylum seeker died on board in a suspected suicide. Yeah, we covered that here on the channel. It's absolutely terrible. The new Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, said during the election campaign that she would initially keep this asylum barge, but that Labour will want to end the use of barges and hotels as fast as possible. However, the IDI understands no firm decisions have been taken on contracts for the barges, currently believed to be housing around 300 residents, and no plans been agreed for phasing it out. The only reason why I say that is I think I'm sure that she will address this. You know, if they're not already going to be putting questions to whenever the next committee meeting or the next questions and debates that Yvette Cooper will have in the House of Parliament, I'm sure people will put these questions to her, and rightfully so, and hopefully she will have some clearer answers then. But time will tell. So a Home Office spokesperson said that Mrs. Cooper will decide on the future of the Home Office policy, including future contract arrangements, and confirmed that no timeline had been laid out. So we don't know when, but I think at the moment it's just a case of just trying to get, maybe now that she's in there, she's still trying. I know it's been more than 2 weeks, but I think they're still trying to get their heads around everything, and probably haven't made a direct decision on this. Imran Hassan of the Refugee Council urged the new government to stop using the Bibby Stockholm at the earliest opportunity. Mr. Hassan said the barge was isolated yet so overcrowded, and it was clear people's mental health is suffering significantly. Like I said, I think if there's a danger for them who's still living on the barge, if it is found to be a danger, that's why I said they should get have a check, like a health and safety check again under this Labour government, to see that if it is dangerous, if it is unhealthy, if it's really bad for them, then they should have under a legal obligation to get them off the barge as soon as possible. The Bibby Stockholm is no place to accommodate anyone, let alone people who have fled violence and torture, he said. Treating refugees coming to our country in a dignified and humane way is a fundamental responsibility of government. Asli Talarim, head of campaign at Refugee Action, said that Labour had inherited a cruel and dehumanising asylum housing system, and asked ministers to take a new approach and create a system that puts people and our communities ahead of profit and division. This means closing mass accommodation sites such as barges and hotels for diverting funding to local authorities who can invest this money in assets and services used by everyone in our communities. Charities have compared the barge to a prison, but the government has repeatedly hit back at this description, saying that asylum seekers are free to come and go and can take buses to go to Weymouth and access local services. Residents on the barge are subject to tight security, including CCTV, round-the-clock guards on shift. They must use ID swipe cards to pass through airport-style security scans to embark and disembark, and there are security fence lines in place so people do not wander around the port. Yeah, this is very inhumane and cruel. Men living on the vessels have also complained of claustrophobic living conditions and poor food, adding themselves that the barge feels like a prison, according to the Mayor of Portland. Carrie-Anne Pakes also previously said that there was a climate of fear on the board following the death of the resident Leonard. Yeah, Leonard was the one who lost his life, sadly. One resident previously told the Eye that he was terrified of living on the barge after losing his friend in a shipwreck on the route to Europe. Facilities on board include a reception desk on entry, a canteen, a gym, 2 outside courtyards that can be used to play sports teams, television and games room, and a multi-faith room. Residents also have use of laundrettes and access to on-site medical facilities. Asked during the pre-election debate on LBC whether she would take asylum seekers off the barge on day one of a Labour government, Miss Cooper said, "Obviously, you can't do that. You can't do that on day one." Yeah, you have to be realistic here. Yeah, I want to get them off the barge too, but you have to be realistic. Saying that they're going to take them off on day one is unrealistic, guys. Because you got to put them somewhere, and taking them straight off is not going to resolve the issue. I think we need to end these extortionate barges, military bases, and hotels. We want to do this as fast as possible. But what you have to do, first of all, the system is broken, so we need to prevent small boats arriving in the first place, and that means smashing the criminal gangs. Previous government quietly shelled plans to adopt other barges into asylum accommodation, I revealed in January, after the Bibby Stockholm faced a series of challenges. An initial group of migrants who boarded in August were evacuated within days after Leonardinia bacteria, which can cause particularly fatal legionary disease, which was found in the water supply. Yeah, we covered that at the time. The Home Office also criticised for risking a public health catastrophe. The Eye revealed that an asylum seeker with tuberculosis had been warned that they would be moved to the barge. Yeah, I remember the eye covering that as well. The barge was used to reduce the cost of housing asylum seekers in the hotel, which official figures indicate grew to 15 million per day last year. This is a significant jump from the previous Home Office estimates of 8 million per day. The Bibby Stockholm is £20 cheaper per night per person than hotel accommodation, according to the department. The barge has also been subject to a legal challenge from the Mayor of Portland, who argued that Dorset Council could have stopped the barge from being moored at the Portland port, which was recently dismissed. A previous high court was also brought by the Mayor to challenge the Home Office over the lawfulness of its decision to house migrants on the barge, was also dismissed. This is obviously unhelpful to the Home Secretary, but at the same time, I'm sure she understands the severity of why people feel they need to feel about getting the barge off as soon as possible. I understand how people feel about it. I really, really do. I know the dangers that it is, but if there is evidence there that says that it is dangerous, it is that this is wrong and that people's lives are at risk, then of course they should be taken off. The sooner the better, but at the same time I also understand. I also want to give Labour a chance to get things done as well. Like I said, 2 weeks. I am going to keep hammering it home, guys, for a while, but yes, 2 weeks into a Labour government now, and people are saying, why haven't they done this? Why haven't they done this? I'm going to keep saying it time and time again. We've got to give them a bit of chance to do things, guys. I do think they will get them off the barge. I do think she will eventually get rid of that barge and that waste of taxpayer money. It's just a case of we need to be patient. And I just want to I just hope, in all seriousness, that the Home Office makes sure that these people are looked after, they're given what they need, and that if it is deemed unsafe, if it is deemed a risk, if these people's lives are threatened because they've been stuck in that barge, then they should move them as soon as possible. But that is a big if on that. But I understand why people are pursuing it and continuing to question the government on this, and rightfully so, guys. So, guys, we're going to take a little break here on Regan's Newsround, so with a funny video to break things up a little bit, guys. Let me know what you guys are thinking about some of the stories we covered so far in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed this funny video from Matt Green, just to kind of break the ice, as we like to say, on some channels on YouTube. And the headline is, this is from Matt Green Comedy, with the headline of Massive IT Outage Today. Who has been affected? So, for those who don't know, there was a bit of an outage today. How did Matt Green respond to this?
A major IT outage has hit banks, airlines and many other companies across the world today. Are bugs, glitches and oh god is this how it starts? Correspondent Jonathan Goodenough has more. Yes, that's right. Businesses across the world who are still using Microsoft like it's 1995 are being hit by malfunctioning computer systems. Do we know what's behind it? It doesn't look like a malicious hack, more an update from an antivirus software that's gone horribly wrong, leaving Mac users even more smug than usual. Which is pretty smug. Smugness levels are off the charts. Who's been affected? It's having impacts across a number of sectors, from banks and airlines to retail and media organisations. Wow. In fact, some TV channels have been forced to go off air, including this one. So what's the projected... Sorry, what? Sorry? Did you just say... including this one? Yes, that's right. This channel's been off air for about 4 hours now. But then, what are we doing here? Why have I been doing the show? Well, we know you've been having a tough time at home recently, and this job is your only outlet, so, But why are you still there? Oh, I didn't have anything else to do, so I thought I'd keep you company. Do you have any idea how long this outage will last? Why, do you want to get rid of me? Charming. No, I'm asking for our... viewers. Oh, we're just playing along, are we? Okay, no, there's no projected end point, but one thing's for sure. If Bill Gates has injected us all with something, now would be the perfect time to activate it. You can't say that on TV. I'm literally just talking to you. Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, I'll sit alone in this studio and ponder all of the life choices that have led me to this moment, and try to work out why this is written on the auto cue.
Brilliant. I love that. Brilliant. That was brilliant comedy by Matt Green, guys. Make sure you check out Matt Green and his work. Matt Green Comedy on the YouTube channel. And as you see that, I'll just highlight it once again. He's got dates coming up next month there as well. Do check out his YouTube channel. Do check out his dates. Type in Matt Green on your Google. If you can go to any of his shows, please do. Give him some proper love and support, guys. Really does deserve it. I hope you guys really enjoyed that one. So just before we go to the next one, which is from the Independent guys, I just want to say, if you want to financially support me in the work that I do here in any way, shape or form, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member. Now, 99p is the minimum level. It may not sound like a lot, but 99p really does make a massive difference. Both YouTube and Patreon are my only sources of income at the moment. So any of these ways financially supporting me really does make a massive difference. By becoming a YouTube member, you get access to custom emojis, which you can use on premiere videos and on live streams. I live stream 3 times a week. At the moment, I'm doing 4 a week. So if you want to join me for any of them, you're more welcome to do so. Schedule will be in the description. Will be on the homepage, sorry. And also, as a member, whenever you comment on any of my videos, obviously comment on any of my videos, you obviously get a response from me as well as access to custom emojis. If you're a $2.99 member, which is the higher level there, you get early access to additional content there. So that's for, obviously, those members get priority videos before they come out to the public. You get there as well. So thank you to everyone who's been a YouTube member in any way, shape or form. It really does mean a lot to me, and it means a lot to the gang behind me. I know you can't see them, but they are. I will show the gang a bit later on. Other ways you can financially support me is by buying me a coffee. The link is in the description. And also you could join me on Patreon. Like I said, I have some wonderful members on there who get access to exclusive content all by themselves because they are part of the Patreon community. So you'll get different content on there as you do here on YouTube. So do check out the Patreon, patreon.com/Reganelite for additional on there. So thank you to everyone who has supported me financially and non-financially way. It is greatly appreciated. So on to the next article here, guys. This one is from the Independent, and this one was the headline with Nigel Farage sparks anger over inflammatory Leeds riot comments. So the Reform UK leader blames violent scenes in the city on politics of the subcontinent. So let's read a bit more into this, guys, because I'm not too familiar with the subject too much. So let's read a bit more into this. So Nigel Farage has been accused of inflaming tensions after blaming rioting in Leeds on the politics of the subcontinent. So the Reform UK leader, who was in the US for the Republican National Convention in Minnesota, posted on social media on Thursday evening as a scene of discourse in the city emerged. The politics of the subcontinent are currently playing on the streets of Leeds, he wrote on X within hours. Don't say I didn't warn you. People in the Hare Hills area of the city were urged to stay at home as officers were called to a Luxor Street at about 5 p.m. on Thursday due to an ongoing disturbance involving agency workers and children. While the children were moved to a safe place, crowds gathered and the situation escalated with objects thrown at the police. The chief executive of Leeds City Council on Friday said that the disorder had been sparked by a family incident, while locals claimed it stemmed from a dispute over children in care. Mr. Farage's intervention has sparked anger among critics. Labour MP Stella Creasy told The Independent it was ill-informed, ill-judged and ill-considered. It's not a surprise that yet again he seeks to stoke division rather than calm tensions, but Mr. Farage would do well to do his homework before blowing his dog whistle, she added. Yeah, why? How much has he done it? Like, the thing is, it's like you can't just jump to conclusions to things, which is exactly what Nigel Farage has done here. It's not ideal at all. In a post on X responding to Mr. Farage, Labour's lead Central, and Hidley MP Axe Sobel said, "This is a situation you know nothing about and no one has briefed you on. You are inflaming a situation with misinformation. Politicians have a responsibility not to exaggerate situations, particularly with no knowledge of them. I expect you to issue an apology." And the chief executive of Hope Not Hate, Nick Lowers, has accused Mr. Farage of making cheap political attacks from America. The politics of a subcontinent has nothing to do with the Troubles, Mr. Lois said, saying that the Reform leader had the facts completely wrong. It came after the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper condemned the violent scene in a post on X. She said, "I'm appalled by the shock scenes and the attacks on police vehicles and public transport in Leeds tonight. Disorder of this nature has no place in our society. My thanks goes to the West Yorkshire Police for their response, and I am being kept regularly updated." So like I said, this was just a few hours ago. So, Nigel Farage, making assumptions all the way over in America there, thinking, oh, well, I'm sure I can say something here that definitely will rile up people. When clearly he hasn't been reading into the context of the story at all, really, there. And, this is the thing. Like, making a tweet like that really does inflame people and feeds into the narrative, which is not true. But the problem is that even if Nigel Farage apologised, even if he retracted the comments, the damage is already done. People have already got in the mindset. And it's people already jump onto the conclusion. It's like yeah, what he's saying is absolutely true. When no, in fact, it's not, because of his face value, because of his opinion, because he's not afraid to say inflammatory things. But the thing is that it's all well and good saying inflammatory things, but saying it about something you know nothing about, pretty bloody stupid as well. So it's just to add as well, guys. So the next one I've got for you guys is from Open Democracy. It's been a while since I've covered a story from them, but this is an interesting one to say the least. So the headline here is: the government fails to monitor firms with a £4 billion contract to house asylum seekers. It's been revealed that investigation finds the Home Office has had no complete record of companies housing almost 100,000 asylum seekers. This, I think this is obviously done. This is tied to this here about housing asylum seekers. This is tied to what the government was doing, the Conservative government was doing last year. Now, you remember that the Conservatives were trying to reach a certain target last year. At the end of last year, they wanted to reach a certain threshold of asylum seekers, like reaching a point. So one of the ways they got around this, and I think this was obviously under Suella Braverman, was they wanted to get rid of the numbers to such a point to make it look like that they've cleared the backlog. And they made the civil servants work day and night to try and clear them, but they weren't going to still meet the target. So what they did was they basically just thrown a lot of asylum seekers out onto, basically just to get them out, and basically just deleted them off the system, allegedly, is what is being said, rather than actually process them and whatnot properly. They were just kind of thrown into the UK to expect to sort themselves out. And I think this is where it ties into here. Now, this is not something you can throw. You can't throw Labour, the Labour government, under this. I know that probably Open Democracy might try to do that, because we know they are quite anti-Labour, Open Democracy, with some of their stories. I have to be very cautious. I have to put that out there, guys. But it is a serious concern, obviously, about asylum seekers, especially when they've gone missing as well. And trying to retract and find some of them who've gone off the radar is obviously a big issue as well. So let's read a bit more what they've had to say on this, guys. So the government has failed to monitor private firms holding asylum accommodation contracts worth billions of pounds, Open Democracy and Liberty investigation can reveal. A joint investigation has found that the Home Office holds no centralised data on the performance of its three main accommodation providers, Serco, Mears and Clear Springs Ready Home, which together houses almost all of the 100,000 asylum seekers in government accommodation. So this is also another thing here. This is another problem here. So because they don't hold the records on them, when it comes to because these private companies are not holding the records properly here, which is another thing. So when it comes to whether their asylum claim has been processed, they can't find them, because sometimes what can happen is some of these asylum seekers, they get transferred to one place or another. Sometimes they'll take them from one accommodation to another, and then they find out that they've gone lost or missing because they don't record that transfer or don't record that missing. So the person completely disappears off the system. So you end up with people who are in places that don't have records, and then sometimes there are those that have records but they're not in the right place. They're somewhere else, or that their asylum claim has been processed, but they've got no way of telling them because they haven't kept the record on them. Because they put it in charge of the private companies, but the private companies didn't have to do that because they were kind of allowed to get away with anything. So yeah, this is really bad. So in 2019, these firms were awarded public contracts initially estimated to be worth £4 billion over 10 years. Though costs have since spiralled, earlier this year, the National Audit Office said it expects the Home Office to have spent £3.1 billion on the hotels in the financial year ending in March 2024 alone. The three other companies often act as middlemen, placing asylum seekers in hotels and other accommodation owned by firms in their networks. But our investigation has revealed that the Home Office's most recent list of all the subcontracted providers are 5 years out of date. So one think tank said the Home Office admissions made between November 2023 and May 2024 in response to the Freedom of Information request submitted by Liberty Investigates are evidence of systematic failure, and has seen taxpayers' bill from asylum housing prices spiral despite accusations that people are routinely being held in substandard accommodation with inadequate care. Clear Springs, Serco and Mears are contractually required to update the Home Office whether a subcontractor is appointed or has contract terminated, regardless of the contract's value. The Home Office said its latest list of suppliers are from 2019 and only features firms with contracts worth over £500,000. Several firms known to be housing asylum seekers are missing from these lists, including Stay Beverly Hotels, a subcontractor from Clear Springs that describes itself as a leading provider of asylum accommodation. Stay Belleville saw its 6-month net profits increase more than fourfold between 2021 and 2022, rising from 6.9 million to 28.1 million. Because the Home Office does not have a recent list of subcontractors, it is not known when the firm began working for Clear Springs, and although a previous court case reveals the partnership dates back to at least February 2021. This is very bad. How did the Conservatives leave this? The thing is that it doesn't... I hate to say this, guys, but I did say there would be more skeletons in the closet once these Conservatives were kicked out. And we're seeing it. And we are seeing it. Other firms missing from the Home Office list of Clear Springs suppliers include Crown Lodge and Lions Group, both of which were involved in housing Vicar Hugo Paredes Vargas, a Colombian asylum seeker who died in a suspected suicide in the Home Office hotel room in East Sussex last October. A coroner is investigating whether any safeguard failings occurred. Clear Springs, Serco and Mears are required to submit performance data, such as whether targets are being met, to the Home Office every month. Targets include maintenance issues and complaints being resolved within set timeframes, the provisions of appropriate transport, and the time taken to move residents into properties. But officials in the government's department also fails to keep proper records of this data, making it difficult to know where contractors are being held to account for any missed target. The information is not held centrally to the department, the Home Office said in an FRI response. To provide the information on performance, officials will need to go back through each provider report. This information would need to be analysed further to calculate how many points have been accrued on the level of service credits this represents. There is no evidence that Clear Springs, Mears or Serco have been failing to submit updates to the Home Office. Okay, that's very important to make. The lack of centralised performance data is made more worrying by the fact that the number of inspections of asylum accommodations carried out by the Home Office has fallen by 45% in recent years. The government's department conducted an average of 378 inspections every month between April 2016 and January 2018, according to the independent Chief Inspector of Borders and Immigration. The latest Home Office figures show that this dropped to an average of 208 inspections per month in the 6 months to March 2024. The Home Office could not confirm the number of times properties were found not to comply with its standards for asylum accommodation during inspections between 2020 and 2023. Figures on full compliance with AASC, asylum accommodation and supportive contracts requirements are not available from inspection records from previous or the current year, though these will be available going forward, it said in November 2023. Asked again to provide the information several months later, in May 2024, the department said we are currently working on developing a system that will record this information. The department was also unable to say how many financial penalties it had applied to services provided for underperformance. This was May 2024, they said they were working on a system. So hopefully the new Home Office will be jumping on top of this. Lucy Moore, a senior research fellow at the Institute of Public Policy Research Migration Policy Unit, described the feelings as deeply concerning and a reflection of the systematic failures within the Home Office. Moore added that despite the enormous amount of money being funneled into these contracts, there is a glaring lack of oversight and accountability regarding the quality of housing provided. Without significant reforms, the cycle of poor housing and financial management will continue to deteriorate the detriment of both asylum seekers and the public purse. The Home Office expects to have spent $4.7 billion on asylum support in the financial year ending March 2024, according to the National Audit Office. More than $3 billion of this is on hotels, dwarfing the $400 million the government said it would spend on asylum accommodation annually when awarded contracts in 2019. The final figure for the most recent financial year will likely be published in the Home Office's annual report in the autumn. Last week, an investigation by Liberty Investigates and Prospect revealed how Clear Springs found that Graham King became one of Britain's richest men off its asylum contract. Whether in a series of scandals and repeat accusations that his company provides substandard accommodation and poor residential care. Tim Nadal Hilton, the chief executive of Charity Refugee Action, said a lack of oversight and transparency was allowing firms to collectively make hundreds of millions of pounds in profit while providing appalling conditions for people to live in. And this right here, we have always suspected this. We have always suspected this about these private companies because we know that they have been making a lot of money. We know that they have racked in lots and lots of money, guys. In case anyone wonders, it's really, really hot today. That's why I'm drinking lots. Yeah, it's this right here. We knew. We knew that they were making lots of money off the expenses here. We gave them a huge amount of contracts, and a small amount of it is being used to actually look after these people. And the majority of it is just going straight into their pockets. So your taxpayer money is literally going into the pockets of rich people, of private companies that are doing little to no effort of their work here. How do you feel about that? Answers in the comments down below. The new government has a golden opportunity to give local councils the responsibility and funding to run asylum housing instead, Neil Hilton had added. The Home Office had previously failed to take action when providers are found to be falling below agreed standards, and in March the High Court found that the then Home Secretary, Conservative MP James Cleverly, had not once used his contractual powers to enforce the performance standard, despite a persistent failure by Clear Springs to meet at least one of its key performance indicators. Describing Cleverly's light touch approach to enforcement, the judge noted that if the contract is not enforced, then contractors are not incentivised to reach performance standards. Concerns about the compliance regime for asylum accommodation were raised as far back as 2017 when the Home Office Select Committee described it as not fit for purpose, adding that inspections are infrequent and the low number of penalties appear at odds with the persistent criticisms of the standards of asylum accommodation. The Home Office spokesperson has said that asylum accommodation contracts are awarded following a comprehensive, transparent procurement process. Contractors and their providers are closely monitored to ensure they are meeting standard requirement. Yeah, they've been very... That's the only spokes they've got from it, from this government. You have to remember that a lot of this is all down to the previous Conservative government. The situation we're in. So, at least they weren't attacking Labour here. But I think this is really important to highlight as well about the situation that they are in. But yeah, lots of taxpayer money has gone to waste, and records of companies housing and records of missing migrants. This is we've talked about it before, but it's a major concern and one that needs to be addressed. Like I said, we've already talked twice in this video about migration. Yeah, and the Home Secretary's got a lot on her plate. She's going to be extremely busy, guys, and I don't blame. You know, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. She's going to have the most on her plate more than anyone in that Home Office. There's going to be a lot of clearing up to do, guys. That is for sure. So, guys, just before I finish, we've got one more story to cover here, guys, and this is regarding the COVID-19 inquiry, and this one is from Byline Times. The headline is COVID-19. What went wrong? From planning the wrong pandemic to a failure to make any economic strategy. The damning report from the COVID inquiry reveals how successive health and social care secretaries failed to put in a plan in place to handle the crisis that struck. Excuse me. Yeah, and this is really bad. Matt Hancock said in the Commons that they had a strategic plan, that everything was going to be fine, that they had a clear plan. And clearly, and this is just the first report, remember, from the COVID-19 inquiry. Clearly, that's not the case. And this is extremely worrying and extremely concerning. And we knew that this inquiry would open up a can of worms. And we knew that that the government failed to take appropriate action, that they should have done more. We know that more was done. We know a lot. We talk a lot about the money, guys, on the channel, about the amount of money that's been thrown away. But I think what's more angry is how badly they got things wrong at the expense of us, at the expense of ordinary people's lives, and not having a pandemic strategy, an economic strategy, and a strategy to come out. It was really, really damning of the Conservatives. Really, really is. And this needs to be hammered home to people, because despite everything that they've done, still they were the second largest vote share at the last general election. And that's incredibly worrying, despite all the failures, all the damage, all the harm they've done. The fact that they've literally been laughing, making themselves richer and better off at the expense of the British public, and yet people still voted for them. Very worrying, to say the least, you guys. So the collapse of the power sharing in Northern Ireland caused by the row over Brexit has contributed to the failure of the UK government to prepare for and tackle the coronavirus pandemic. A damning first report from the COVID-19 inquiry under Baroness Heather Harlett revealed on Thursday. The report, which several criticised, severely criticised his leadership from both top civil servants and ministers across Whitehall to prepare for the crisis, highlighted the additional failures under Prime Minister Theresa May and Boris Johnson to deal with the Irish border issue and contributing to a breakdown of communications during the pandemic between the two nations. Due to the suspicions of the power sharing arrangement, approximately 46 meetings of the North-South Ministerial Councils did not take place between 2017 and 2020, the report states. The Joint Secretary and the Cross-Border Emergency Management Group continued to function during this period, but any areas that required ministerial decisions, for example in relation to funding, could not be taken. Grieving window process outside of the COVID-19 inquiry when Boris Johnson gave evidence in December 2023. The report is damning on the failure of the UK government under the three successive health and social care secretaries, Andrew Lansley, Jeremy Hunt and Matt Hancock, to have strategy to handle the coronavirus pandemic. The sole strategy set out in 2011 was to handle a severe influenza outbreak, as the report states. This amounted to no strategy when COVID-19 struck. There were cosmetic changes to update the strategy when the coronavirus arrived, but no consideration of any major changes required. Lockdowns were not even contemplated. The strategy concentrated on reducing casualties. Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland copied the English version of their strategies rather than developing their own. Worse than this, the Department of Health and Social Care repeatedly said that it had taken into account an earlier service acute respiratory system, SARS, outbreak in 2003 in its planning, which, unlike COVID-19, had limited transmission, and assured the inquiry it had no plan to cope. No UK-wide contingency plan for SARS, Middle East respiratory syndrome, and MERS, or any other high-consequented infectious diseases had been disclosed by the UK government, the inquiry said on Thursday. The inquiry is therefore satisfied that such plans never existed. All those people. I remember when I walked past it. I remember walking past it last time I did. And they will never get justice. There'll never be charges. There'll never be criminal charges for the lives that have been lost, guys. For those who don't know, this is the National COVID-19 Memorial Wall in London for the bereaved families of the pandemic. You can find it along the Thames Water in the centre of London. Alongside this failure to plan an adequate strategy, there was a parallel failure. During the period of austerity to make any economic plans, the Treasury only planned for a financial crisis rather than a pandemic, as the former Chancellor George Osborne told the inquiry. Yeah, because obviously protecting money was more important than protecting lives. The Treasury is only involved in the civil emergency preparedness of other departments by the overall management of the economy by setting budgets and applying spending controls as part of the day-to-day business of government, the report states. It therefore did not produce an economic strategy specifically for pandemics or potential responses to a pandemic. The bill for the pandemic is estimated at $376 billion, and the report states that in the future, the Treasury, the Cabinet Office and experts from the Department of Health and Social Care should jointly estimate what the cost of future pandemics could be. Many projects could have helped control a large pandemic were abandoned by the government. The Department of Health and Social Care recognised that quarantining people could stop the spread of disease in 2006, but stopped work on this. This had been done in East Asia. Meanwhile, plans to improve civil contingencies in Northern Ireland were halted, leaving it unfit for purpose when the pandemic broke out. The report is also critical of the memorandum numbers of organisations within Whitehall handling the pandemic and the lack of coordination between them. The one committee that was designed to coordinate all matters, the threats, hazards, resilience and contagious committees in Whitehall, were disbanded in 2017. They just let everything go, Conservatives, and just Like, let's just run the risk. Who cares? What's the worst that can happen? Remember, this is all under the Conservatives, and some people still went out of their way to vote for them. As a result, immediately prior to the pandemic, there was no cross-government ministerial oversight of the matters that were previously within the subcommittee's remit, the report states. Senior people in charge of the report noted suffer from groupthinks, but the system did allow top officials to receive a wider range of specialist advice. Organisations at the local level were less coordinated when it came to preparing for a pandemic, with the report stating that structurally, this created a gap when it came to addressing a public health emergency, with professionals in civil contingencies and public health not properly connected. The directors of public health, the public health workforce, and local government had a critical contribution to make to the pandemic preparedness and resilience, it added. The report states 6 measures were not taken, but must be to tackle future pandemics. And these are a scalable system of testing and contact tracing, a practicable system of isolation, effective border controls and health secretary at the border, surge capacity in health and social care, stockpiling and distribution of personal protective equipment, PPE, and protecting vulnerable people. The Conservative government failed us. And we already know that. But this is the first report of stating some of highlighting the damage that has been done. And this is only the first, guys. This is only the first report. And there's going to be more to come from this inquiry. But it's partly humiliating on a world. I would say it's humiliating on a world stage. But it is also tragic because of the lives that have been lost. Because political decisions cost people's lives. And it was a case of how many people's lives can we have saved? Could we have saved? Could we have done more? The whole point of this inquiry is not so much about ensuring criminal charges come towards them. And I know that question will be brought up again in the future. It's understanding what happened, why it happened, and what we are doing to learn from those times. That is really important. Whether or not a future Conservative government will learn from that, I very much doubt at the moment. But I do believe that Labour will take this report on board and make some changes necessary for this. They know that we have to be ready for a future pandemic. Just because this is the first ever one that's happened in my lifetime doesn't mean to say that's deeply affected me. Doesn't mean to say that there won't be another one in my lifetime or in your lifetime for that matter. We must always prepare for the inevitable. Prepare for the worst. And the Conservatives took away those preparedness. And people died for that. So guys, we've come to the end of Regan's Newsround. What did you think of some of the stories that we covered today? We covered mainly a lot of things around migration, guys. But we also covered a bit of Ukraine war and the ties that it has to the government as well. Let me know what you guys think about all the stories and more that we've covered today down in the comment section below. Let me know your thoughts and feedback. It is greatly appreciated. But just before you head out of the premiere, guys, the gang behind me would like to say a massive thank you for watching. If you have watched all the way through. This is the gang behind me, so you can get custom emojis if you are a member gang. But yeah, on behalf of the group behind me, they want to say thank you if you have watched all the way through, guys. It is greatly appreciated. So if you haven't already, please hit the like button. We greatly appreciate. Shares across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. Or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.